Michael Lombardi dropped the nugget that Kyle Shanahan as a coordinator is 1-8 against Jim Schwartz in his career. And if you go back to, Kyle's most famous moment as a coordinator, which I would say faulted him as a coaching candidate, not that he wasn't probably in the mix, but I'm just saying solidified he was going to get a job, was the Matt Ryan MVP season when they were beating the crap out of people. And if you go back to that season, the Eagles, who I think went 7-9, they won the Super Bowl the following year. They held him to 15 points, and they lost the game. And it was the lowest points they scored that year was 23. And if you look at their schedule in 16, the Matt Ryan MVP season, it's a lot of 33s to 40s. I mean, they were potent. And that was a season, and that was a team. It's more a coordinator. He's historically a wide 9 guy. I think they've kind of meshed that a little bit. But the wide 9, in my opinion, like 2000 when I was with the Eagles, it felt like they were at like the 15s. It was like the wide 15. I mean, they were way out there. It feels like they've come. The 49ers don't feel wide 90.
They don't.
I mean, they don't feel as. It's definitely been modernized. I think that term might as well get thrown out. The 9 is just outside, technically, the tight end. It's just the numbers are just based on zeros over the center, and you just work your way out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, the evens are head up. So it's just a 9 can technically be out by the slot receiver, and that's when I think wide 9 Philadelphia. That was it. It's changed. Also, when you have the Bosas, the Garretts, the Alden Smiths, it's a little different because they are total package players. They're a defensive team. Right, and 2 weeks ago when he was out, and I think they played the Ravens, it was like, their defense you got to hold it tight. And DTR got overwhelmed, and the defense, it didn't even matter. And Lamar kind of went MVP-ish a little on them. This week, they're not going to DTR, they're going to PJ Walker. Credible story, right? But this is a Jim Schwartz defense. Like, if they're going to win this game, it, to me, would have to be like 7-7 at half. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
And Myles Garrett causing havoc. The corners causing havoc. Their defense just looked like everything we thought the Cowboys were going to be last week, but this.
That's right. I mean, when you watch them, to me, what's impressive about the Browns defense, I think, versus the Cowboys defense is part of what makes the Cowboys defense or made them so good coming into the game was their takeaways, right? Niners now are tied with the Bills for the NFL lead with 8 interceptions, but the Cowboys are second. The Browns have only forced 3 turnovers this year, 1 interception and 2 forced fumbles. That is not, that is a stat that is terrifying for an offense, but it's also, it can be a little, it's like major league relief pitchers. One year you're great at it, the next year you're not. It can be a little bit of a misleading stat depending on how good your defense actually is. So when you watch the Browns, like they're pretty aggressive. They're really talented. They can stop the run. They have very good corners. To me, they are a more intimidating defense than Dallas's defense. And part of it is that as good as, and Micah Parsons is excellent, but Myles Garrett is like 40 pounds heavier than Micah Parsons, right? He's a different challenge this week in the run game and in the pass game. He's humongous. He's massive. And I think they are probably a more sound, solid defense. And I think the turnover stats kind of reflect that. Like sometimes the takeaways and the defensive touchdowns can make it look more impressive than it is. And as long as you keep getting takeaways, then it's great. That's who you are. But if you play in a game where you don't get takeaways, like Dallas just did, you look like a different team. That's not Cleveland. Cleveland doesn't need Brock Purdy to throw the ball to them in order for them to be an effective defense. Listen to what they've done, John, against the 4 quarterbacks they've played this year. So you mentioned Lamar. Lamar was 15 of 19 for 186, 2 rushing touchdowns. They didn't really need him to throw the ball.
It was like 21-3 if I remember. I was watching the game at halftime. It felt over at half with DTR.
It was. You're right. Their offense was so irrelevant in that game.
Yeah.
The other 3 games,
So
Joe
much for
Burrow,
the preseason.
I know. Joe Burrow, Kenny Pickett, Ryan Tannehill. Burrow, 14 of 31, 82 yards.
What week was that?
1.
So he was a shell. He was a shell of himself. Yeah.
Kenny Pickett, not good. 15 of 30, 222. Tannehill, 13 to 25, 104. If you're thinking like all these sound like 50% QBs, 48.8%, 69 passing yards per game in the first three. That's great. Those are not real numbers. Like that's not what a defense does over the course of 17 weeks. And it's not what this defense is going to do over the course of 17 weeks. But
they do have a pretty unreal combination of a D-line and corners.
That's right. No, it's 100%. But they're good. And like I said, what Brock and Kyle are up against is a defense that doesn't have to turn you over in order to slow you down, which is, I think, I'm not going to say it's tougher than a defense that turns you over, but it's just a little more real. There's a little more meat to this Cleveland defense, I think, than the Dallas defense. And here's one other factor. Kyle versus Dan Quinn is just, I think that we've seen that over time. Kyle's going to win that battle every time. As you said, He's taken Brock now. Brock's kind of got to help Kyle out because Kyle's shit hasn't worked against Jim Schwartz. So Brock's got to be kind of the separating factor for Kyle this week.
Yeah, I mean, the weather's going to get weird. And I think it's weird a lot of places in the country, the Northeast and even the South. The winds are supposed to be crazy. It's going to rain. That is one area, and this is why the Niners can win anywhere, right? If they're not the 1 seed and the Eagles are, they can go on the road and win. And vice versa. Like the Eagles, the way they're built, can go on the road and win. Great defenses. And like you said, if we're assuming, I think it's fair to say that this defense is better than the Cowboys defense, especially once the Cowboys lose Diggs. Hell, I saw Van Der Esch is on IR. Like their defense is going to become much more pedestrian. I would say the great like when I think of like, have you ever seen like just flipping through the channels, seen like that the Ravens defense did like some 30 for 30 like town hall?
No,
it's like Saragusa, Ray Lewis,
RIP.
But those guys like yearn for the weather to turn shitty.
Yeah,
you know that's what a defensive guy like. They don't look at it like golf or baseball. They don't want it 88 degrees and sunny. Like they yearn for it to be 40 degrees, ugly. Like we're gonna beat the shit out of you. So the better your defense is, the better I think you have a chance in sloppier games. I also think they have a better chance if it's a sloppy week with a backup quarterback, and who knows even how good Deshaun is in 2023 anyway, than they would if it was just a 74-degree day in early October in Cleveland, Berea, Ohio. I guess the practice facilities in Berea, the games in Cleveland. And it's 5 mile an hour winds. Just a beautiful day. Like I think that's a huge advantage to the Niners. If it gets ugly, it just neutralizes team strengths. And the Niners team strengths run after the catch. Right? I mean, it just helps them.
Yeah. It closes the talent gap, right?
Yeah. It would for any opponent.
But Cleveland's talented on defense. I thought when I saw the P.J. Walker got subbed in for this game, signed off their practice squad. They used to have Josh Dobbs. Remember that? They saved $1.5 million by trading him because they're in the position where they have to save money. So they signed P.J. Walker off the practice squad, even though DTR had been their number 2 quarterback. I don't know that P.J. Walker's 7 starts. He's 4-3. Beat Brady last year. Beat the Bucs when he was on the Panthers. Played for Steve Wilkes. But for them, like to me, the game gets a little more questionable when they go to a guy who's played NFL games versus a rookie. Like I just think it doesn't mean they like P.J. Walker ultimately more than DTR, but this game for DTR would just be a rookie quarterback in this situation. It's just a really bad spot to put him in. So when they go to P.J. Walker, I immediately go, okay. I wouldn't have, if I were the Niners, I would have preferred they stayed with the rookie.
Well, if DTR played, I think it's like a 99% win probability. There's under no circumstances, unless like 7 Niners get hurt on the first drive, they could win the game. I also think sometimes it's enlightening. And I think fans and even front offices are right to be like, play Aiden O'Connell. Remember when Jimmy was hurt? Play DTR. Right when Deshaun Watson goes down, it's a no-brainer to everybody. And then the game happens. You're like, didn't quite look like I thought it would. Remember, I was like, you're going to play Brian Hoyer, not Aiden O'Connell. And then about a couple series in, you're like, this is a lot going on for Aiden O'Connell.
A lot of number 4 jerseys on the rack in Vegas, by the way, though, where I was this week.
Saying Carr or O'Connell?
O'Connell.
So it's just, I think rookie quarterbacks can be really overwhelmed really fast. And honestly, he could go on to have a good, solid career. But wouldn't you imagine that Raven game? They realize like we can't play this. We can't start this guy if we have to win. I think PJ Walker's starting this game if they're playing the Niners or they're playing the Carolina Panthers, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
you might be right about that. I don't think the opponent changes their opinion on DTR. I can't play him in a regular season game. It's just a lot going on. That would be my educated guess. They're not going to publicly say that, but you look completely overwhelmed like that. The preseason, and this goes back to the conversation that everyone had around here with the 49ers, it's how irrelevant that is once regular season games start. I got a DM the other day. They're like, everyone in the preseason was saying this guy on the Chiefs, Justin Ross, how great he was. Then the regular season starts, their receivers need help, and he can't play. And I'm like, because in the preseason, you're just running the same 20 plays over and over in the preseason game against a defense that is just running the same 2 or 3 defensive calls. Where in the regular season, you're taking all your plays, and then every single play, you're adding elements off them, what they're going to do as they're tweaking things. There is a million moving parts in the regular season that aren't in the preseason. So you can get overwhelmed. It's just like, I don't even know what to do. And it's why a lot of coaches get hesitant. It gets back to what Dion says. Like, why I'm not playing this guy? Because you guys should see him in fucking practice. You got no clue what's going on. I can't put him out in the game. And maybe there's a chance bright lights goes on and just clicks. Coaches do not risk that. Ever.
No, and that can work once, but it usually doesn't work 5 weeks in a row, right?
Well, DTR was like throwing ropes against the same defense over and over, which did look impressive when he was doing it. But then he plays a real team, and he feels like the 64th best quarterback. At least PJ Walker, if you're the Browns, you're trying to make the playoffs desperately. So he's a guy that knows how to play in an NFL game. Right, he had 7 starts is not nothing.
He's practiced against the Steve Wilkes defense. Maybe there's something to that, right? When he was in Carolina. I also think, like you and I were talking before we started the show about Dak's salary, I think part of it probably, they're paying Deshaun Watson $50 million almost. I think they probably rolled the dice and went, what's the cheapest backup quarterback we can get? We'll put that person behind Deshaun and hope that Deshaun doesn't get hurt. They didn't sign PJ Walker until, I got to go back and look. I think it was like the beginning, maybe into the month of September. So maybe they would have started somebody else 2 weeks ago. He just hadn't been on the team long enough. I don't think that them playing DTR was evidence they thought DTR was ready necessarily. I think they went into the year with a $46 million quarterback. That's why they traded Josh Dobbs to save $1.5 million. If they were worried about this guy getting hurt.
It's also value, right? You got $1.5 million backup. Someone offers you a 4th, 5th, 6th round pick.
I'm all for it. I'm just saying, I think they just rolled the dice that Deshaun wouldn't get hurt, and Deshaun got hurt. And now they had to scramble.
If you ask them today, if they have a redo, they would have kept Josh Dobbs and made DTR their 3rd quarterback.
With $46 million quarterback, you don't get to have a quarterback that's ready to step in and win the NFL games. You just don't. You're not. No. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think it's easy to go Monday morning quarterback. They would they would love to have Josh Dobbs last 2 weeks ago and then this week, but this gets back to the owner forcing them to give the guy $230 million. You're kind of all in, and this is the thing. This is where the Niners are kind of lucky. They're not all in on anybody. I mean, they are on Purdy, but financially they're not. Once you go all in, it's why the moment when you're watching a Chiefs game, when you're watching one of these games, and the guy just rolls an ankle and he's kind of hobbling, you're like, that'd be a major problem. Aaron Rodgers over the years, right, has had some injuries, obviously this year, but even back in Green Bay days. It's what makes it kind of so unique about Tom. Beside the torn ACL, he was just always there every fucking game.
Yeah.
So it's like that position, let's face it, there are more than enough questions whether Deshaun Watson is still like an upper echelon quarterback. And right now he's clearly not, but like, is he ever going to get back to being like a top 8 quarterback? And 2, if he's not, like if he's just hovering around like 14, you're kind of fucked. That's if he's playing, let alone how you have to build the squad. Because I was thinking about the Cousins thing. Part of the problem with Cousins is his price point now is so high that even whoever signs him this offseason would have to give him he's 35 years old. Let's say I got to give him 2 years, $84 million and guarantee 70 of it, he just takes up a lot of my space, and that changes the way you do everything. You got to get lucky with some draft picks, and then he just has to be on the field. Like, ultimately, if Bosa rolled an ankle, missed 3 games, like, you can build around it. You could bet on Trent. Your quarterback goes down, you're just fucked. You are so screwed once you pay him the amount it costs to pay him because of how you build the backup room.
What if 2 quarterbacks go down and you end up on Brock Purdy?
Then you just get Brock Purdy and you just start rolling.